Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're exploring some of the reasons why alcohol, when compared to other drugs, is not only socially acceptable, but the ability to consume it in vast quantities is so often seen as a badge of honour. I feel grumpy about slovenly technology updates. Martin has exciting news about Tree of the Year. We have questions about communion wine and debate the value of parallel parking. Hiding in plain sight.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He was having a bit of an update on your computer where you made us start late.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that. It doesn't seem to give you any warning. You sort of start your computer up and then it becomes evident after a couple of seconds that it's done this massive update, and then it takes about half an hour to get itself together. It's pathetic.
Was that a Windows an Apple update, or was that Gotcha.
But if you're going to do an update overnight, bloody well get it finished by the time I want to use you in the morning. That's
well, exactly.
My advice.
Well, it's not. No, it's poorly constructed, I think, don't you?
Terrible technology. It's not going to be on my bloody gratitude list, I can tell you that.
We could have a grouch list. We could put that on there.
For some reason, I think I'd find it easier to populate that this morning.
A grouch list, would you? Yeah, but it lacks positivity, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Yeah, we don't want to go down that road.
No, we don't. We don't want to promote negativity, that's for sure. It wouldn't suit our purpose. But anyway, what I was going to talk about, I headed my notes up this week, hiding in plain sight.
Okay.
The idea came to me recently when I was at a peer support meeting and we were discussing the way that alcohol is the only drug that you can indulge in taking openly and it's positively encouraged. And therefore it's easy to carry on behaving in a destructive manner with society not really that bothered or caring about it. It's very different. We were talking about the behind closed doors approach associated with other drugs like cocaine and heroin. Although as it happens, we end up behind closed doors when our alcoholism takes a firm hold. We end up drawing the curtains and shutting ourselves away anyway. But most people can take this drug openly and with no problems.
And actually, in some cases, the reverse. In some cases, it's you're seen as a bit of a hero if you're a heavy drinker, aren't you?
Oh, it's a badge of honour you wear, certainly, and it's one you invest heavily in trying to achieve.
And then spend years regretting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's youthful exuberance. Then becomes adulthood angst.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for some people, I suppose it carries on still being a badge of honour all through their adulthood.
I don't know. People look less kindly upon an old guy sitting at the end of the bar on his own, looking miserable, than someone that can go to a party and drink 2 party sevens.
Can you still get a party seven?
I don't know whether you can or not, but they were
I know you wouldn't be buying one, but...
No, I wouldn't, but they were a ticket into a party, weren't they? You tucked that under your arm and off you went.
Yeah, if you had a party seven, yeah. Or I don't know what else. Yeah, that was the golden ticket, a party seven. Then you'd always get some idiot who'd bring a bottle of Cinzano or something, wouldn't you?
Well, they've nicked it from home, basically, haven't they? And then walked in with it, yeah.
And it would arrive full at the party, and it would be left full at the end of the party.
It would. I know someone. I think actually it was Steve that listens to this podcast. I think he used to take a really horrible bottle of whiskey to every party. No one wanted to drink it, then he just used to take it home at the end of the party. So he had this ongoing ticket, which is quite genius, I thought.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Anyway,
so that's what I was thinking about doing I have done my notes on. But before we start, I was interested to hear on the radio, and you probably saw it on the television as well. There's a Tree of the Year award.
No,
issued by the Woodlands Trust.
I haven't seen that.
No, I'd never heard of this before, but apparently it's been going on for some time. And I think it was highlighted. Do you remember that the sycamore gap tree that was recently felled near the Hadrian's Wall?
Horrendous.
Which just vandalised. Now, that was a previous winner, apparently, of the Tree of the Year award.
Quite right. They should have felled the bloke who felled it.
Well, I don't know what's happened to him, but it seems to be the mindless vandalism was
I'd be taking an axe to him. That's what I'd be doing.
He'd take his legs off. Yes, yeah. He likes laying on the ground.
Exactly. Just a torso. Twat.
Anyway, it was won this year by a sweet chestnut tree in Wrexham, if you wanted to know. Well, it was a lovely tree. Don't get me wrong; it was over 500 years old, so they reckon it was a sort of sapling during Elizabeth I's reign.
So are all trees automatically entered like the FA Cup?
No, I don't know.
Are there qualifying rounds?
I don't know. Yeah, instead of grassroots, it's tree roots football. Yeah, it starts. Yeah. No, I think it. I think it's put forward by. I think each county put something forward. But the funny thing is, if you do win the UK Tree of the Year award, you go forward to the European Tree of the Year competition. So you go into Europe. A bit like the footy.
Fantastic.
And I don't know if there's a world tree. If it goes after that, it goes off to.
I think only every 4 years.
Only every 4 years of the world tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to do much either. They just stand there.
Yeah.
And not die.
But I love a tree, don't you?
Of course you do. Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, these people that like to hug a tree, don't they? And that's all good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever hugged a tree. I don't think I have.
No.
Always, when you see pictures of people hugging trees, they tend to be going for ones with a huge girth.
Yeah.
That you can only sort of very partially get your arms round.
Yeah.
That always seems to me to be a little bit unsatisfactory. I'd want to get my arms right round a tree. I mean, for example, I could hug my apple tree 2 or 3 times over because it's only a sapling at the moment.
You could. I think people like to hug those really big ones because they're so old. So you're touching base with history, aren't you?
Yeah, hope so.
But talking about Europe, going forward to Europe and that sort of thing, very sad to hear of Sir Bobby Charlton's passing yesterday.
I thought you'd bring that up. I mean, I know we try not to talk about football, but I was going to ask you a question. Is Geoff Hurst now the only surviving member of that team?
I think I
couldn't think of another one.
No, they've all gradually passed away over the years. I think he probably is, isn't he? I know he's been on the TV talking about his mate Sir Bobby, and obviously Sir Geoff. I think there were only 2 that were knighted from that team.
Were they? Were they the only 2? Oh, that's interesting. You'd feel a bit aggrieved, wouldn't you, if you'd been part of that team and you think, well, why didn't I get a knighthood then?
Well, quite. I know the others all ended up with OBEs and CBEs and stuff, didn't they? Which is further down the scale. But
pecking order. Still quite good, though, isn't it?
It's still, it's still an achievement. Anyway, going back onto the hiding in plain sight notes. When I Googled hiding in plain sight, initially it throws up a series from last year about youth mental health. Which I thought is quite interesting, but it also quite interesting. It diverts you to a campaign being run in Lancashire by a recovery hub to highlight the problem of addicts not seeking advice to help with their issues. So I think they were looking at people that weren't really aware of what's available to them. So even though I had this thought independently, it seems to link in with perhaps other people's thoughts about the issue as well.
I think that's probably. It's probably quite true that a lot of people haven't got a clue where to start with that.
It can be a minefield. We're lucky in Maidstone where we have a recovery hub where you can bowl up and everything's signposted for you. But without that, it is tough. People don't know where to start. But also, I found when I Googled hiding in plain sight, it did also throw up a series about Rolf Harris. So I moved on a little bit quickly from that one. Thank you very much. So that was as far as yeah, you don't want that on your algorithm, do you?
No, that's not the sort of thing you want found in your search history, is it?
No, it isn't. So anyway, I moved on from that and I stopped Googling hiding in plain sight, or HIPS as the acronym is, and I looked at why alcohol is socially acceptable. Which is why, which is the next step on from this about, why we can openly drink and no one really bats an eyelid. And there's a number of different reasons that came up, and I just wanted to go through some of them here. The first one was that alcohol has sheer numbers on its side. With most adults have taken a wee dram from time to time, and over half of the adult population drink regularly. So it's heavily normalised, isn't it? It's unlike coke or heroin, where it is very much frowned upon, and this is done and encouraged openly.
But it's different from smoking, though, isn't it?
It is.
I wonder why it is that smoking, I'd say, is certainly less socially acceptable than. Well, I mean, it's definitely less socially acceptable than it used to be, and it's less socially acceptable than drinking.
Yeah, it is.
They both have quite significant health consequences if you're not, excuse me, if you're not careful.
Yeah, they do, and there's been discussions about perhaps they should have some sort of campaign like they have had with smoking. It's taken many years to sort of push it to where it is now. But perhaps they should be doing the same with alcohol. But I think it's alcohol has history on its side, doesn't it? I mean, they've been around. Alcohol and hard beverages have been around since the beginning of human history.
Yeah,
there's been times where it's cleaner and better for you to drink alcohol than it is to drink the water. It's like that in the UK, wasn't it? During the Middle Ages, where the water was very. If you drank that, you'd end up with all sorts of problems,
dysentery and all manner of things.
Yeah, you would.
Whereas you could get yourself tucked into a glass of mead and you'd be laughing.
Well, a goblet of mead and you're away, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a double win, isn't it? Not only do you not get dysentery, but you do get off your face and start dancing on the table.
Until that win becomes a loss later on.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, everyone's first drug is probably alcohol, isn't it?
Probably, isn't it?
Yeah. Apart from obviously prescribed stuff, perhaps as kids you have a bit of Calpol and that sort of thing. But I think the first drug you take socially, and I always see it as more of a gateway than. I mean, cannabis always gets seen as a gateway drug. It's always put up. So you've got to ban cannabis because it's a gateway drug. I think alcohol is. It really is to a lot of people. I think it's the first drug you take, and it does alter the way you perceive things, and therefore you're much more likely to. Someone offers you some drugs at a party, like the parties we used to go to as kids, when there were drugs flying around, you'd go for it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, because it is, as you say, it's mind-altering, isn't it? And once you get a taste for that, there's an alternative reality here, or I don't have to think about those things that I don't want to think about anymore, then that can be quite compelling. And I suppose then any other opportunity you have to do the same thing is more likely to be accepted, yeah.
It is. I mean, one of the other points that came up was that wines and spirits play a role in religious customs, such as the Eucharist ceremony.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't imagine going up to take, or communion, for example. You can't imagine going up to the vicar, really, can you? Going down on your knees and he offers you a little spliff or something like that. It's wine, isn't it? That's acceptable, isn't it? It's the blood of Christ.
But actually, you mentioning that, I can remember when I was a kid, when I was taking Holy Communion, there was something quite exciting about, I'm having some wine here. So you're right. Yeah. It's very, very much kind of ingrained. There's something attractive about the forbidden nature of it in a way.
Yeah. No, I agree, especially at such a young age. The allure of your parents' cocktail cabinet was
well, we've talked about that before, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Having a little route round, finding the apricot brandy when they're out.
Well, exactly.
Tucking into a small sherry, looking for some jazz chords.
It just reminds me, going back to the to Holy Communion stuff. I was never confirmed, so I never got involved in all that. But
horrible, blasphemous child.
It just reminds me of the TV series Only Fools and Horses, where Del Boy actually was going around selling pre-blessed wine, wasn't he? Saved the vicar a bit of time. I think the one of the points that came up a lot when I was doing the research is really the money that's involved in the alcohol industry, which employs millions of people and accounts for billions of dollars worldwide. And again, we were talking in the meeting really about the genie is out of the bottle, if we can use that phrase. Because, I mean, if you try to introduce alcohol as something socially acceptable today. I think the powers that be would look at it and think, this is not good. What it can do to the side effects are horrendous. And the destruction it wreaks upon people personally and across society as a whole. That's, no, I don't think this is going to be a...
So you're saying it's too embedded in our kind of social tapestry.
It is. It's
to be able to do anything
it?
about it.
No, it's worldwide as well, isn't it? It's not just a local epidemic. It's a thing that is now... So it'd be quite tough. And I know, going back to the smoking analogy you were talking about earlier on, it's been quite a battle with the tobacco companies to get to any sort of shift. They hold massive sway. And I'd imagine the alcohol industry would be exactly the same.
Well, imagine just think about the tax take from alcohol. Yeah. I mean, which government is going to clamp down on drink suppliers?
They're not, are they? And we know prohibition doesn't work, so that it has to sit. It has to sit neatly in society, and we just a bit educated about its proper use. I think that's the only answer, really, isn't it? There's another point that came up that our culture often encourages alcohol as a coping mechanism. Now, for example, they encourage each other to relax and have a glass of wine at the end of the day. That's almost synonymous with it's almost a feel-good factor for people, isn't it? They come home and think, I deserve this. You look at the adverts now, it's synonymous with having a good time, isn't it? You get the drink adverts.
There's also that, you're right, there's that sort of natural feeling that, I've had a difficult day, I need to have a drink.
Yeah.
That, isn't it?
Yes.
And actually, I've never really thought about it like that. When you consider what's happening when someone has a dependence on alcohol, something that we've often discussed is that is alcohol at that point is then being used to block out difficult emotion, difficult feeling. But that sort of seemingly innocent, it's been a stressful day, I'm glad to have a drink, is like the tip of that iceberg, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Now, I know it doesn't go that far with everybody, but it's the same thing. It's like, I don't really want to look at this. I don't want to think about this. I'm going to have a drink. And, at the other end of that spectrum, your life's in tatters because you're taking that approach.
Well, exactly. Exactly. It is a thought that, it's something, again, we discuss quite often in groups. But there was something that I thought about when I was doing my research. It suddenly sprang into my mind because I see it often, is when alcohol is seen as an ideal partner for tasting certain foods. Do you know what I mean? Like pizza and beer are often advertised together, or cheese and wine. Cheese and wine parties were all the rage in the 70s and 80s, weren't they?
Yeah. Cheese and pineapple on sticks.
Yeah. A glass of wine. But then I was, because it came into my mind because there was a cookery program on the TV, and they have people on there specifically to say, this is the wine you need with this particular dish, this one. And I mean, it reminded me also, because you go into some restaurants, and they have a sommelier there, don't they? And they will recommend one. I remember going to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in Claridge's. And I was in the Madness back in the day, and it irked me because you ordered a bottle of wine, and the sommelier would take the top off to let it breathe and put it on the cabinet quite a long way away from you, and he'd have a little tipple himself. Good to see what... He would take the top off just to make sure that it was okay. You could see the waiters thinking, what's he doing? He's drinking my wine.
I would have thought the fact that it was a little way away from you would have been the most disturbing thing.
Yeah, you had to wait, for God's sake, for it to breathe. I didn't want that.
Why didn't you say to the sommelier, can I have another bottle of wine while I'm waiting for that one to be ready?
Yeah, like back to the round between rounds situation, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember thinking, you pay all this money, you go to a nice restaurant, he nicks your wine. Couldn't believe it.
There is an assumption, isn't there? I mean, what you're really talking about there is the assumption that, well, everybody has a drink, everybody likes a drink, and actually, for someone like me, because I've never really had a problem with alcohol and I don't drink very much now, it doesn't really worry me too much. But I should imagine if you're in recovery, the kind of expectation that, well, everybody drinks, don't they? Must be at the very least a little bit wearing, if not triggering.
It can be very triggering, certainly, which is why we avoid certain scenarios in early recovery.
The other thing about that is that you're almost that there's a subtext there that says, well, you're not normal, are you?
Yes,
if you're in recovery and you don't drink, you're not normal.
Yeah.
And that sort of feeling that you're not like everybody else is kind of part of the problem, isn't it? You want to feel like, well, I don't drink because I've had issues with drinking in the past, but I still want to feel like I'm, the same as everybody else.
Well, yeah.
You're being told constantly by society that you're not.
You're not. You are, and that is quite problematic. You get over that. You learn to roll with those particular punches, because people often will say, "Oh, that's a shame."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you think, "Oh, I don't. That's not the response I need. I want the response."
Well, it's not a shame, is it? It's not a shame. No. I mean, I've never. I mean, I expect you may have done, but I've never met someone in recovery who regrets being in recovery.
No, I haven't. No, they don't. You're always better off. You're always a better person. Yeah, and so when you get that response from people, it can be a little bit down or disheartening. But I think a lot of us I certainly do make a bit of a joke of it now, and it sort of lightens the mood a little bit. Whether it's a process I'm going to for hiding mutual embarrassment, and I don't know. But it doesn't sound like it, because actually that sort of response, the sort of, oh, that's a shame, apart from being a little bit patronising, I know it's not meant to be, but it's born out of ignorance. It is, yeah. If you're in recovery, you've moved yourself into a space where actually your life is better. Yeah. And someone is saying to you, oh, that's a shame, as if actually your life is now in some way deficient. But the reality is, when you were drinking, your life was deficient. And now you're not drinking, your life is less deficient than it was. Yeah. No, you're right. But I think perhaps it is born of ignorance. People don't know really how to respond to that when you tell them you're in recovery. And I often lighten the mood by saying, I've just drunk my lifetime allowance early. And so, I'm having to have a break from that now. And then you can move on. But yeah, it's one of those things. You learn to deal with that. I think you're probably slightly underestimating that you drank your lifetime allowance. You probably drank more than your lifetime allowance, didn't you? I borrowed some other people's. Yeah. Some people who have been teetotalers, you had their bit. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I bought it off of them, bought their allowance. I bet you would have been. You must have been one of those people at do's in the past where you'd have been circling around tables looking for, some of the complimentary 2 bottles of wine that had been left on the table hadn't been drunk. Oh yeah, swooping. Well, you'd swoop at the end of the night for anything that's left over. That's for sure. Yeah, yeah. I could never get to grips with people who would not drain their glass. They would leave the table and leave most of a glass of wine left and just go. I could never get to grips with that. Yeah, I mean that in itself is an illustration of how there is a difference between the mind of someone who has a dependence on drink and the mind of someone who doesn't. Yeah. Because, a lot of people would say, well, yeah, I've just had enough. So I know. Yeah. I know, but to someone with an alcohol issue, that's an absolute waste. So what the hell, what are they thinking? Which is why you swoop and drink, you drink it for them. You can't see that kind of waste. That's outrageous. But it is the same. And because with some of the early do's, I used to go to dinner dances and that, they used to have cigars on the table. And that became the wrong thing to do. And alcohol is still there at the moment. I mean, you don't see drugs on the table, do you? I mean, the alcohol's okay. Not usually. I don't go to those sorts of parties. I bet there are some, Well, go to the right sort of parties, you'd probably be a bit of cocaine on the table. Yeah, I suppose, the rock star parties. But you don't look like a sommelier coming up to you there, do you? You look like some of my finest Afghanistani stuff, sir. We'd like to take this. We'd like a tourniquet on the terrace, sir. You don't get that, do you? I'll tell you what. I don't know if you're going to talk about this at all, and I'll be interested to know what it does to you. But do you remember a couple of weeks ago I sent you that video from TikTok of that guy who's trying to drink 2,000 pints in 200 days? Oh, yes, yeah. Which he's now completed. I mean, obviously, I don't know whether he did drink that much, but that was the. But some of the comments on that thread, because what he did was he would post every day, updating people. They were pretty nondescript videos. He was just bringing people up to speed on how much money he'd spent and how many pints he'd drunk. But the comments from people were like, oh, you're such a legend. I find myself, when I'm exposed to that, I find myself getting quite angry. It makes me angry. I'm not quite sure why, because it's not my life. He can do what he likes with his life. But there's something about that glorifying
in ridiculously excessive drinking that I find really irritating. What do you feel that same way as someone in recovery?
Yeah, you do.
Right.
You do, because it's sort of accepted lead culture. And I think we've seen other aspects of lead culture come into the spotlight recently, which is now is deemed to be undesirable. And this is certainly, I find it irritating.
I think what happens with me, I find it irritating because I'm irritated by the ignorance of it. I think that's what it is. I mean, I can't care about the individual because I don't know him. So it would be disingenuous of me to say, oh, I'm worried for him, because I'm not. Yeah. You know, watching stupidity is annoying, isn't it?
It is, but I think it's like fame at any cost, isn't it? And I think that's the society we live in now. It could
be that. I suppose it could be that.
So I find all of that annoying, really. But certainly with alcohol, I think it's irresponsibly annoying as well. But yeah, I mean, so he's got to drink 10 pints a day, basically, hasn't he?
He's finished it now. His
average of 10 pints a day. When I was in the madness, I'd have quite liked that, certainly, because I could have then shown that would have been a benchmark that I wasn't able to achieve myself at that point.
So, okay.
And so I'd have said, that would have given me comfort that perhaps those people were worse off than me.
Right, okay. You mean, so you'd have compared yourself with someone like that, and you'd have said, oh, I'm not that bad after all.
Yeah. And I'd have shown other people, perhaps my ex-wife, and say, yeah, you have a pop of me about drinking. How about this fella? So you'd readjust. You'd rely on an outlier. You'd normalise an outlier.
Yeah.
Which, talking about ex-wives, it's coming on to. I wanted to just go on to this. I found this little quiz, all right?
Yeah.
Which is to check if your partner is hiding in plain sight. I'm glad you didn't see this back in the day. Well, it was dated. Am I dating an alcoholic? All right. And so there's a few questions that they would ask. They're all A, B, or C. The answers, yes, no, or sometimes something. But it was quite interesting. Some of the I won't go through them all, but one of the questions was: does your partner's personality tend to change when they've been drinking? Well, everyone's personality changes. That's not really an indicator.
Yeah, not really, no.
Yeah. Does your partner tend to drink to cope with stress or other things going on in their life?
Well, it's not just stress or other things. It's everything, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah. Does your partner often drink more than they originally intend to, or stay out much later than they planned when they're out drinking? That used to happen to me all the time. But I wouldn't come home sometimes. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, it's not only that, but you'd also create reasons for going out. Like going to the cash point.
Exactly that. Yeah.
I always made me laugh, that one, because you'd say, I'm just popping up the cash point, right?
Yeah.
And going to the cash point from where you lived then was a 5-minute journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Up the cash point, back again. And then you'd be gone for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
You both knew you weren't going.
Yeah. It was a hidden code, really, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's what it was. It was never kind of questioned or discussed or...
Not particularly, no.
It was just easier, was it, to say I'm going to the cash point rather than I'm going to the pub?
Going to the pub, yeah. In fact, I drove past that. The cash point's been bricked in now. It no longer exists. That one.
You'd still be saying you were going to the cash point, though, wouldn't you?
The bank branch has been closed, and the cash point hole has been bricked in.
What was hard? Do you think? Can you remember what was hard about saying I'm going to the pub?
Yeah, it softens it, really, doesn't it? I always knew that I shouldn't be going, really.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, so you didn't want to front up what you were doing, even though you knew what you were doing.
No, and I think it was easiest just to say that. We used to laugh about it a little bit, I suppose, because you knew what the outcome was.
Right.
But no, I don't think my ex-wife was that worried about me going.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to the quiz.
Anyway, is there alcoholism or addiction in your partner's family?
Yes.
Which is quite a good question to ask. Or does it seem that your partner needs to drink to have fun?
That's an interesting. I'm just thinking about you then.
Yeah.
I don't know. How would you answer that? Because when I think about you at that time in your life, I would have said, well, that's not really a question I can answer, because whenever we're having fun, you're drinking.
Mm.
So it would be impossible to know if you can have fun without it, because I don't think I'd ever have seen you out doing anything without drink.
Without drink, no, and that's it. I mean, it's a constant companion. But no, I'd have felt certainly myself like it was horrible if we had to go out for an evening and I was driving, so I couldn't drink. So no, I wouldn't have fun. In fact, I almost deliberately didn't have fun. It would be that. I'd just be a miserable.
So you'd be sulking.
I would be sulking, yeah. Which is it's no way to behave, is it?
No.
But the last question on there, there's several others, but I'll go to the last one. Do you think your partner is an alcoholic? It's a strange way to wrap up the quiz, really.
Hang on. So the quiz is about, are you going out with an alcoholic? And the last question is, do you think your partner's an alcoholic? Why didn't you just start with that one?
It'd save you going through the rigmarole of it all, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was quite interesting because there's several other quizzes in there about drinking and that sort of thing. But I just picked out a few because I thought they were quite funny. But there's a little quote that sort of sums up what we're talking about here: is that many hidden truths are often unobserved but not invisible.
Yeah. Yes, like I'm not really going to the cash point. I'm actually going to the Swan.
Exactly. But there's things that, like I say, it's hidden in plain sight, and sometimes we choose just not to see it. And we choose not to see people have it with drink issues often.
Or we choose not to see it in ourselves.
We do. Yeah. So that's about it, really, mate. Unless there's anything else you wanted to add. I thought it was just quite an interesting, after last week's episode on anxiety, which is extremely well received, and a lot of people have mentioned it. Yeah,
nobody said anything to me.
Have they not? No. Well, I've seen several people that I know listen to it, and they said, "Yeah, that was really good," and they've shared it on. This week is a bit more down to earth, I think. Or
we can't be heavy hitting every week. Can we?
We can't. No,
we run out of stamina.
So I was going to go on to the features that I've renamed it 100 skills every person should master.
Lovely.
All right.
We must be on skill 5.
Well, I've left some off because there's 100 on the list. I've gone through, but the one was quite interesting. I don't know what number it was, but learning how to parallel park.
Oh,
now there's a Facebook page that I see come up from time to time, which is called Parked Like a Twat, and it puts pictures on there of people's disastrous attempts at parking. Normally over the lines in a bay, but somewhere where people
right between two spaces, which is incredibly irritating.
It's very irritating. Or right over one side where it's not in the middle of the bay, which we know in supermarkets can be quite tight. Those bays, you've got to park responsibly.
Yeah.
So parallel parking. I mean, I suppose it wasn't something I don't remember ever it being taught to me when I was learning to drive. But certainly my dad.
It must have been though, wasn't it? Isn't parallel parking part of the test?
I can't remember now, but I know my dad used to talk me how to do it anyway. But I still do it now. I put my head out the window and look behind. Well, I don't so much. Yeah, you line up your back wing with the outside wing of the car behind, and in you go.
Yeah, that's interesting. That because I can remember my most recent memory of this is not teaching my daughter to drive, but practicing with her when she was, before she passed her test. And I can remember she had a lot of difficulty with parallel parking and bay parking. And she got in her own head where she sort of thought to herself, I can't do this, I can't do this. Yeah. And I can remember being in a car park with her practicing and realising, we've all got our own process for doing this. And actually, in a funny sort of way, it was a bit of a eureka moment because I said that to her. I said, I think you're going to have to find a way that works for you because when I tell you how I do it, I don't think that's going to work. And so you saying, you always put your head out the window. Mm-hmm. I always look in my rear mirror and there's a kind of certain position where the car behind me needs to be in my mirror. And I know I've got it right, but there's no way I could describe it to anybody. It's just like, that's the way I do it. I don't know how I've developed it.
It is. And I mean, with the parking aids that are available on cars these days with rear view cameras and reversing beeps. Yeah. Well, I do find that useful.
I'd say parallel parking is definitely a skill that everybody should have.
Yeah.
Well, unless, of course, you don't drive, in which case it doesn't really matter, does it?
Don't need to. Yeah. Gratitude list then.
Yeah. Is it me first?
I think so.
This week I'm going for persistent vegetables. Right.
Or the ones that insist on getting on your plate, or
the ones that insist on growing.
Oh, okay.
Throughout, despite all sorts of challenges. So I've got some vegetables in my raised beds that were struggling a bit in the late summer, because all the insects would go for them. You know, the butterflies would eat them, or the slugs would get them, or whatever. But when you get into this sort of time of year, when there are fewer of those sorts of insects around, some of those persistent vegetables start to thrive and start to come up. And it's lovely to see me Cavolo Nero and my cabbages all coming up now, thinking, thank fuck those insects have gone. Now we can blossom.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you're grateful for that.
So I'm grateful for that, and the fact that obviously when they really do take hold, I'll be able to pick them and eat them. So all that work will have been in vain.
Yeah. I never really thought about a persistent vegetable, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, you don't grow your own veg, do you?
I don't know.
Do like a bit of spinach though, don't you? And I'd put spinach in there as well. Spinach can struggle a little bit when it's really hot, but it's going great guns now.
Good work. Well, you can pass some of that across.
Right.
On my gratitude list this week, I've got Stollen bites. Now,
early for Stollen, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. See, I'm grateful that Aldi, because I hate the way that shops pre-sell us Christmas, basically, or the run up to Christmas starts in like October or in September in some cases.
Well, they've hooked you in.
They have a whole 3 months building up to a one-day holiday or a one-day celebration.
12 days. 12 days of
Christmas.
Huh? 12 days of Christmas.
Well, yeah, but I don't like it. I don't like the long build-up. But what I am grateful for is that at least Aldi, they get in the Stollen bites, which I really love. And they stop it as soon as Christmas is over. They're gone. So I know Christmas is on its way, and I see the Stollen bites creep in. So I'm grateful. I suppose I'm more grateful to Aldi for, if they are going to push this thing down their throat that Christmas is on its way, then, yeah, Stollen bites, I'm happy with that.
So actually, you're being a bit of a hypocrite, because you don't like the commercialisation of Christmas and the early start, but you're willing to take advantage of it.
I'm willing to take advantage of it because there's no way I can stop it, so I might as well indulge in the bits and pieces that.
Aren't you sick of Stollen bites when it gets to Christmas though?
I don't buy hundreds of them. I just buy a packet every other week or so and steam through them, and away you go. Yeah,
I've probably made you some Stollen in the past, haven't I?
You did make some Stollen, which was really lovely, really tasty, which is obviously superior to the ones that you buy in the shop. But
I'm glad you said that.
It needs must.
Anyway, good.
Okay. So I was going to go on to the on this day in music, but which year quiz?
Yeah, I didn't do terribly well last week, so.
In which year was Every Loser Wins by Nick Berry the number one this week?
Every loser wins.
It's an awful song, wasn't it? It's from obviously from EastEnders.
Okay, the year that's in my head is 88.
Ooh, 2 years out.
86.
86, yeah.
Bloody hell. I keep getting 2 years out. It's really annoying.
It is annoying. I wonder how.
Okay, I think I did better than I thought I was going to there.
Yeah, no, that's good.
What happened to Nick Berry?
What happened to him?
Yeah, he was in Heartbeat as well, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was a bit of a heartthrob amongst the girls at one point, and then he sort of disappeared.
I don't suppose he would be now.
Probably not. He's a West Ham fan, though, isn't he?
I think he is, yeah. Nick Berry. All right. Anyway, Nick Berry, if you're listening, hello.
Hope you're all right, mate. Yeah.
Hope you're all right, yeah.
What year was Shaggy born?
It wasn't me.
Not Shaggy, not the cartoon off of Scooby-Doo.
Shaggy.
That's quite a good impression. But the musician.
Yeah, okay, Shaggy.
It was on me. That Shaggy.
Yeah, that Shaggy. 19.
Yep, you got that right.
1960.
1968, so you're a little bit out on that. But it was a tough one to try and...
These are really difficult this week.
Yeah, they are. That's just the way it goes, mate. I don't make up the rules. I just find the question. Now, for death, John Peel died in this year at age 65.
1993.
2004.
Oh, I've really done appallingly this week.
They're the toughest questions, the year ones.
That's appalling.
Well, it was tough. They were tough. Yeah,
it's having a negative impact on my mental health. That
is
quiz.
It? Perhaps we'd better stop doing that.
I'm beginning to feel a little bit depressed by
doing the quiz.
I'll have to go and have a good hard look in the mirror. think.
You do, yeah. Have a word with yourself. Give yourself a little therapy. You'll be fine, mate.
Yeah. All right.
Alrighty.
Okay, good stuff.
See you soon.
Later. Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.